Okay, it's Monday morning, November 6th, 2023. This weekend, of course, was the it was Metallica in St. Louis. It was their no repeat weekend tour as part of their promotion of the current album. And I went. I had an enhanced experience. I had the frantic package, and I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about what it means to see Metallica at this point, especially for me, someone that's been a fan since I was like, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. This was the third and fourth time I've seen them, and how things have evolved over time. Because yeah, this weekend was an experience, and I feel like yeah. Let's talk about it. I've My opinion on things was brought into question. I feel like my entire experience was brought into question over the course of this weekend, and I want to talk about how that happened, why that happened, and what came of it. So I have my laptop here in front of me. I have my laptop here in front of me because the first thing I want to talk about is the set list. Like I said, it was 2 nights, and Metallica was no repeat weekend, so they insisted on playing two completely different sets. Both sets were 16 songs each, which were each kind of divided into four sets of four. We'll talk about that. They played roughly 2 hours each night. Um, and then, so they had 32 songs across the whole weekend. I'm going to put them up on screen so that way you don't have to listen to me talk. You can pause it if you want. Um, but in order, okay. Friday night was Creeping Death, Harvester of Sorrow, Holier Than Thou, The Memory Remains, Lux Eterna, Too Far Gone, Fade to Black, Shadows Follow, Orion, Nothing Else Matters, Sad But True, The Day That Never Comes, Hardwired, Fuel, and they Seek and Destroy, and they finished with Master of Puppets. And Saturday or Sunday rather, uh, it was Whiplash, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Ride the Lightning, King Nothing, 72 Seasons, If Darkness Had a Sun, Welcome Home, Sanitarium, You Must Burn, The Call of Cthulhu, which was wow, No Leaf Clover, Wherever I May Roam, Moth into Flame, Blackened, Whiskey in the Jar, One, and Enter Sandman. For those playing along at home, that's 2 from Kill 'Em All, 5 from Ride the Lightning, 3 from Master Puppets, 3 from Injustice for All, 5 from the Black Album, 1 from Load, 2 from Reload, 1 from Garage Days, 1 from S&M, 0 from Saint Anger, 1 from Death Magnetic, 2 from Hardwired, and 6 from their latest album, 72 Seasons. They will do just about anything to avoid playing a song from Saint Anger, including playing covers and symphonic songs. I don't hate Saint Anger as much as everyone else does, and I want to see its redemption story arc. I have my laptop here for I've got a script, so I apologize if that seems informal. I'm gonna try to. It's really just bullet points. I'm gonna try to have a teleprompter up at some point, one way or another. This like set area I have set up with the studio. If I do more videos like this, there's gonna be a teleprompter. So don't think I'm necessarily just going off the cuff with half of this. Just a heads up. Even though I would have liked to see a song played from Saint Anger, just for because I think it's not that bad of an album. The doubleheader sets did make it possible for me to see them play songs live that I've never seen. I've never seen them play either of the instrumentals. I've never seen them play Blackened, Whiskey in the Jar, King Nothing, No Leaf Clover. Honestly, yeah, the selection was pretty good. With a show like this, they're gonna have songs that are staples, right? That you expect them to play. But even then, there were some songs I feel like I would have expected them to play that they didn't. They didn't play The Unforgiven. I thought that was an interesting choice. Uh, there was a couple other songs I'm kind of surprised they didn't play. I went and I looked on setlist.com or setlist.fm, whatever it is, to look to see how many songs they played before and what songs they played before. I'll post those up as well on the screen so you can see my prior two experiences. 2008, I saw them at the hockey rink, which at that point I think was called, I think it was Savas Center. It's changed names like 4 or 5 times. We love licensing and rebranding. And then in 2017, I saw them at Busch Stadium. That's where our baseball field where the Cardinals play. And so both of those times they played 18 songs. Usually it was 15 songs, and then like a fake exit, and then a 3-song encore, right? Um, and so you had 16 songs total per night, 32 songs across the weekend, and they had to make space for songs off the new record, which they are promoting, right? So let's talk about that new record. 72 Seasons was released earlier this year, and for me, it just doesn't really land personally. It just didn't really hit me all that well. I've heard folks compare it to Load and Reload, especially waiting in line, hearing how folks were talking about it. Some folks said it was like they're going back to their more experimental sound. I don't think Load and Reload were all that experimental, if I'm being honest. I feel like it was the opposite. I feel like they were more prepared to make radio ready hits on those records than they were being experimental. I feel like Saint Anger was being experimental. Lulu was being experimental. I don't think Load and Reload were being experimental. In the same way, I don't feel like this record was being experimental. I feel like, to me, it felt like it felt like a lot of the songs were jam sessions that it felt like they found like a riff or a groove or a pocket to sit in, and then they sat on it for like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, and it just didn't really feel like it went too many places for me. I'm a metal fan, and I'm used to songs being 7 or 8 or 9 minutes long, right? But they have to. I feel like they have to go on a bit of a journey for me. Look at the song structure of Master of Puppets, right? Look at Orion, right? Those songs go places, and they really. It sounds like they find different pieces of song to put together to make one cohesive bit. Or I felt like a lot of the songs I was hearing on 72 Seasons, it felt like, is this song not over yet? Like, oh, this is 11 minutes of this. Not really my jam. Um, and so there were some cool rips, and that first single that came out, Lex Eterna, ripped, right? But that song knew it didn't want to overstay its welcome. Much like, and it really paralleled Hardwired, the single, when that was announced and came out, and was like it was the announcement for the Hardwired album. It was fast, it was raw, it was like 2 or 3 minutes long, and like, we know what it is. We're just gonna like play it, go, be done with it. And both of those were breaths of fresh air in anticipation for their respective albums. But if you look at the Hardwired single, that was like a breath of fresh. That reminded us of Metallica's influences, and and that whole album did. A lot of those songs, if not all of them, betrayed some of Metallica's influences. You had songs that sounded like Maiden. You had songs that sounded like that had like Motorhead parts, right? Uh, and I feel like while Lux Eterna is a song that really does acknowledge those influences just the same, I feel like the rest of the album doesn't do a lot of that. And so, in my opinion, the album just didn't really push the band's sound in the right direction, and that's coming off of the lineage of Load and Reload to Saint Anger to Death Magnetic, which was a step in the right direction. I think everybody agrees. To Hardwired, which was I think more good stuff, and I just feel like, yeah, it just wasn't really uh, an increment in this progression. That being said, it is what it is. I can't change the album, and that's the album they put out. They played 6 songs off that record. Lex Eterna they had to play that song. It was great. And there were other songs I heard probably for the second or third time, because I haven't listened to that album that much. During the live set, that felt pretty good. Um, and so I was like, I was enjoying some of those songs, and I realized that even the like songs I enjoyed versus songs I didn't enjoy, it seemed like everyone else around me was enjoying every song more than I was. Now let's talk about that. So, like I said earlier, this is my third and fourth time seeing Metallica. Sometimes I refer to it as one experience, one event, one concert. Sometimes I'll refer to it as separate concerts. It'll go back and forth forever because of the way it's set up. Um, uh, by the time I had seen them in 2008, that was my first like real concert, right? I'd only been to basement shows at that point. Um, and so the experience was polar opposite from basement shows. Growing up, my best friend across the street, his mom worked at the ticket booth, and she was able to get me a line on buying some really nice seats. In fact, I had front row seats to my first Metallica show, and that kind of set the bar. You know what I mean? There was still a pit between me and the band of general admission, but I was close enough that I was able to catch a drumstick from the drummer of the Sword, who opened up for Metallica that night. It might be it. It's somewhere around here. I have a drumstick from the Sword. I still have it. Uh, and then after them, Down played. Who, Down, if you're familiar, is a band that had Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown from Pantera in it after they split off from the Abbott brothers. And so they played, and then Metallica played. Back then, I was like, these are the bands. You bands are these are just bands keeping me from seeing Metallica. I came here to see Metallica. I don't know who these other bands are. I knew the Sword had a song Guitar Hero that I'd heard, and like I was annoyed at that point that I wasn't immediately seeing Metallica. Because I kind of also painted a picture of my understanding of opening bands. Of course, as I grew up, I knew that just the way things were. But back then, I was like annoyed. However, the Sword ruled. It was the only time I ever got to see the Sword, and I wish they got to play for way longer than they did. Um, and so that show was on the Death Magnetic tour. 4 of the 18 songs they played on that in that set were from the new album. They finished that show, and they said they'd love to come back to St. Louis more than every 4 or 5 years because they hadn't been since the St. Anger tour, and that was cool. And I saw them when they came back again, all the way in 2017, 9 years later. By that point, I'm an adult. I made my own money. I was living on my own. I was much more capable of seeing Metallica under my own terms. And as soon as they announced the tour, I bought my ticket. My intention was general admission, right? I wasn't scared of mosh pits anymore, and they don't let you really mosh at those shows anyway. And so, in those 9 years, I had been going to shows. So in those 9 years, I'd been going to shows, usually at like the Pageant, or off Broadway, and it was decently common for me to weasel my way up to the front of general admission, whether I'm on the rails or up against the stage or what have you. I got pretty good at doing that, and that's kind of how I prefer to see bands, especially when it's only general admission. I'm 5'7". I feel like I'm shorter than most other dudes, and so being in a flat room of general admission behind a bunch of tall folks is not ideal for me. And so when they announced that show at Busch Stadium in 2017, I knew exactly where I wanted to be. I saw that there was an option for early entry. Now, Busch Stadium is our baseball field, and we had a hockey game in our baseball field one year before this. And I went to one of the exhibitionary games before the actual hockey game. And I got to see just how much bigger a baseball field is than a hockey rink, because there was a hockey rink in the field. And so because of that, I was in the seats for that. I knew that, like, if I went in the seats of Busch Stadium to see Metallica, they're going to be tiny. And so I was like, I have to get general admission. So early entry was the way to do it. That I can't remember what that enhanced package was called. It might have also been called Frantic. I feel like it had some tie to St. Anger. But back then that was $300. It was 2017. And it had like a bunch of stuff with it. It came with like there was like a Metallica exhibit that you could look at, I think. There was food, and you got a drink ticket, and it came with a poster and a shirt. So you got a bunch of stuff. It wasn't just early access general admission. It was like it was a package, right? And I got there about 12:30 or 1 that day, and they started lining us up. I was within like the top 20, first 20 people to get there, and that kind of informed my experience going into this weekend. And so when they let us into the building to kind of stage us up in line to go out into the field, a lot of folks went and got food, went to the bathroom, checked out the stuff to look at. I just beeline straight for the line to go onto the field, and that moved me way up in the line. I was probably like 6th or 7th. And when they finally let us out, I was able to sprint my way to the rails where I stayed that whole set. I was mere feet from the band, right? You're up against the rails, and then there's like a pit for photographers and crew to walk through, and then the stage, right? Now, on that tour, they had the Snake Pit. That tour was like a wall of screens and like a long stage that ran underneath them, and then this diamond shaped thing that came out in the field for for uh, the Snake Pit folks. That's like a way you have to spend a lot more money to get in the Snake Pit, but there's no pit between where you're standing and the stage. You're up against the stage. Okay. Um, Local H and Volbeat opened that show. I didn't really care for either. And when Metallica had started, it was raining. My phone was dead. I couldn't take any pictures. I didn't wear earplugs. My hearing was shot, and so it just sounded awful. But the band was extraordinarily close, and it was a visual experience at that point because the auditory wasn't really there anymore. And so the massive screen made it easy for me to see what I couldn't see with my own eyes. And that was important. All these things are informing my decisions going into this experience. So I saw Metallica in 2017, and then time started ticking on. They, toured on that album for a while, and then I think they celebrated an anniversary or something. And COVID happened, and then just like the last time, one day everything dropped. Right, new song, new video, new tour, new album. Like it's like, hey, stuff's happening now, and that was on November 28th, according to my emails. And they're like, hey, pre-sale tickets go on sale on November 30th. You got 2 days to figure it out, bud. Um, and that if you wanted to snag one of those enhanced experiences, especially the cheap ones, the cheapest of which is the one that I get, just general admission plus early entry, please. Those are going to sell out fast. So be on the ball. Just like the same, I knew it was coming out. I felt like I had to buy these tickets, right? It just felt like an obligation. Like I don't know who I was obligated to, if that makes sense. But November 30th came around. I bought. You had 2 days to decide, and you had to buy. You also had to buy both. You couldn't buy tickets for just one night. You had to buy them both, as per the enhanced experience. Later on, they would come out and say you can buy tickets for just one of the 2 nights, but that was when they went on sale properly. This was still pre-sale. This show was at the Dome, which is where our NFL team played back when we had one, and where our XFL team, the Battlehawks, play. I'd been in there for football games and Comic-Con before because it butts up to the convention center, and when conventions get big enough, they just use the space of the football field instead. So I knew it was a big place. I knew it was bigger than the hockey rink because football fields are bigger than hockey rinks. I just didn't think much of it when I bought those tickets. What annoyed me most was that mandatory 2-day ticket purchase, on top of the fact that you couldn't transfer half of your package. Like your enhanced package was tied to your identity, period. And Ticketmaster didn't acknowledge this at all. I didn't get screwed over at all, but I don't think they had any restrictions. You had to have your name attached to the ticket if you wanted in. I feel like somebody might have gotten screwed out of that. That being said, the reason it annoyed me, not because I didn't want to see Metallica 2 times in a weekend, it was because I knew when it was announced, it coincided with a rally race that I would have competed in. The Show Me Rally is the first weekend of November, as was this concert. And so, it sucks not being able to race one of the races that's in my home state, but there's 3 races a year in my home state. There's Metallica comes through like once every, 6, 8, 4, 5, who knows how many years, right? So that kind of made it easier to swallow. What I would have liked to have done was, go to my rally race on Friday and Saturday and then come back and see Metallica on Sunday and then just sell the other half of my ticket to someone else, split it evenly. I think with the way the world is with tech, this is possible. It's not difficult to make this happen. It's just that they just didn't want to make it happen. However, it really didn't matter much in the end because my car needs tires, which is an expense. If you want to talk about tickets, race car tires are expensive. Okay. And my co-driver took the year off, so we weren't doing a bunch of racing, and I just bought, I bought half of a second house. And so, yeah, finances aren't there, and I'd already spent this money before any of those things came up. And so it was not really a question. If this show wasn't happening, I don't know that I would have been able to race anyway. but I still felt like I was carrying a bit of annoyance going into the show over this. It's grass is always greener, right? So anyway, the show comes up, and I get an email about early entry. The show starts at 6, regular entries at 4. They let early entry onto the floor at 3:45, just 15 minutes before the rest of them, and then they let us into the building at 2:30. So based on my previous experiences, I drove down there and showed up to the venue around 12:45 after paying $40 for parking. Dumb move. When I got to the gate for early entry, there were probably about 100 folks in front of me, which was more than like 12 or 20 or whatever I said I had in front of me at Busch Stadium. There were 3 early access lines: I Disappear, Seek and Destroy, and Frantic, all at the same gate. Okay, and it had those flags or whatever you see out in front of like phone places. Okay, and they weren't well displayed, so no one really knew what line they were in until it was too late. And over the course of the 2 hours sitting there, you saw several people realize they're in the wrong line, have to go back to the back of the line they should have been in. And so I moved up just a little bit in the line because of that. But it does suck for them. It's like that scene in the Christmas Story where they think this is the line for Santa, and the guy's like, no, that's the beginning of the line for Santa, right? And so while we're waiting there, they started checking us in. Some staff went around with like a tablet and scanners, and were checking IDs and giving us these wristbands and stamping our hands and giving us our Yeti cups with our drink ticket inside. The drink ticket was just a guitar pick. And the Yeti cup was just the packet merch for this. I'm not a Yeti guy, okay? So it doesn't really do much for me. I drink my drinks typically at room temperature. I don't care about them being cold or hot. I prefer them to be neither. I don't want to feel temperature as part of my drink. All I drink is water anymore. So yeah, the Yeti cup does nothing for me. And I thought Yeti cups were a lot more expensive than they actually are. And so yeah, like a 20-ounce Yeti cup is worth like $35 MSRP, and it sucks because like last time, even though I didn't do anything with the food or see the exhibit, I still got like a poster and a t-shirt, and they had a merch booth there, both inside that we had early access to, and like a tractor trailer type merch booth. There was a pop-up stand in the town, in the city somewhere, I don't know where, but somebody said that the line was like wrapped around the block, and so I paid $300 for a ticket in 2017 that came with all that stuff. I paid $600 for 2 shows in 2023 that didn't have any of that stuff. So when you think about the way everything else has inflated, it's not that awful. Okay, like $300 for a ticket to see Metallica was like 1% of my salary in 2017. $600 to see Metallica for 2 shows is also 1% of my salary in 2023, but that's 2 shows, right? Think about how many loaves of bread or eggs. Remember when eggs were like, I don't know, eggs seemed to be like the measurement of inflation for a minute there in the pandemic. Nevertheless, ticket price didn't really inflate that well. It just would have been cool to have a shirt, because I wasn't going to spend any more money on this. Now, to some, $600 is a lot of money just by itself, especially to see a band like Metallica. Since 2008, I've spent about $1,000 to see Metallica over 15 years. That's $250 a show. That's quite a lot, but I've had front row seats or front row general admission. I've had an experience every time, and I expected to get rails this time, both nights. Overall, it's like I paid $67 a year or $550 a month over the course of 15 months to see Metallica whenever they came through. And so I said there, I expected to get rails. Just like in 2017, when we got into the building, about half the crowd split off to go to the bathroom, get food, get drink, get water, get merch. The other half went straight to the door to get into the floor, right? And so by that point, I think I counted, I was like 45th or 46th in line, so I was moving up pretty good. And so but over the course of that hour, we only had like an hour to wait there. Folks were coming back from getting their food and going to the bathroom, and they're cutting in line because they have a person in their party that saved them their spot. So I was actually moving back. I think I got pushed back to like 60th or 70th, somewhere around there. They all had, they were all part of a party. They had someone to hold their spot, and they can go in shifts to the bathroom to get food or what have you. I was just there by myself. And then that, I'm sitting there by myself. I'm reflecting on that. That really affected a lot of the weekend. Like being alone was the theme of the weekend. And that sucks, right? Like that's not fun. I have friends that I have friends. I do. I do have friends. Uh, I have friends that would see Metallica for, uh, like the right price. And I have friends at the show. I have friends that go to the shows, all the shows. But what they're willing to spend to see Metallica and what experience they're trying to get out of it differs from me. And I think that I'm ready to admit that's a me problem, not a them problem. Because, I grew up in a punk scene for a while where like, there was, like it was easy to dunk on Metallica and big, overproduced, radio ready, arena sellout bands that go after people for downloading stuff on Napster. Super easy to hate Metallica where I came from. And so, it's easy for folks to be like, look, like, based on my experiences this weekend, I would not be surprised if a lot of folks that were there would have things to say to their friends like, don't you want to see the greatest metal band of all time? How could you not want to spend this much money to go sit and, waiting for hours? And people are different, and I accepted that a long time ago. The long story short, is I have a lot of friends that would see Metallica for the right place, for the right price at the right time, and without spending 11 hours in one day to make that happen. But not enough of them would tolerate what I go through. And so that's a me problem. Then again, I also felt alone when I got there, not just because I was literally by myself, but in another way. I feel like the way folks express themselves all weekend made me question how much I actually like the band. Uh, it's not a great feeling to have when you're posting up for over 5 hours before the openers start, or after you've taken off work, or after you've spent $600. It's sucky. It's a sucky feeling to have. Do I actually even like this? Is this something I'm interested in? Am I a victim of my own compulsions? Like I said, I felt like I had to buy those tickets. And let's be clear, it's not that people were like any kind of way where I wouldn't want to be associated with them. It wasn't like that. Like oh, being a Metallica fan means that these people have to come with the territory. There were some characters, but it's not like I'm embarrassed to be seen around other people that do like Metallica. Okay. It was that everyone else seemed to be way more enthusiastic, more stoked to be there than I was about everything. They were emoting and expressing and just conveying an overall higher energy than I was for standing around in line for 5 hours. Okay. On top of that, it felt like everyone was having like a peeing contest to see who the biggest Metallica superfan is, right? Everyone had to talk about these little bits of trivia about the shows they've been to and what they know about the band. And all anyone wanted to talk about was Metallica all weekend. Folks talking about how they've waited their whole lives for this moment, how about epic it was going to be, this and that. And it's like, dude, like, we're about to share this experience. We don't have to pregame it. We don't have to, yeah, we don't have to tailgate in the parking lot for this. We're both gonna see the same show. But can I just say that what I feel like is cringy is to talk about celebrities on a strictly first name basis. Like it's weird to see folks talking about the band and then just mononymously James or Rob or Kirk as if y'all are friends and on a first name basis with one another. Maybe it's because I have a different experience with celebrity, being in Raleigh and sharing the race course with names like David Higgins, the 10-time national champion here in the U.S., Travis Pastrana, Ken Block, and meeting them all and still referring to them by only last name or first name, last name basis. Travis Pastrana might even recognize me at another race. I've talked to the man 3 times. But even then, unless he comes up and is like, hey, Ty, I don't feel like I'm on that level with him, and I respect that. And to me, like, I feel like when people say, like, it's not just using first name, because people will mononymously refer to Lars because of his villain status as the mastermind behind the Napster incident. It feels like when people are saying, like, well, James smokes cigars. I feel like what you're saying is, in parentheses that no one can hear, my friend James smokes cigars. There's something about that seems, and maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me picking up on this. And like I will tend to. And I was talking with my buddy about it. He's like, sometimes when you bring someone into a conversation, and this is like a linguistics problem. You bring someone into a conversation, it's easier to refer to somebody by their first name, or in my case, I tend to refer to them just by their last name a lot of the times. Sometimes that's what we use pronouns for. Everyone's favorite topic, pronouns. And so yeah, that's just a part of language. I just feel like there's some part of me cringes when I hear people talking about these like high level, celebrities like this. Uh, like it feels like tabloids, feels like reading tabloids. Um, and so yeah, maybe this is a matter of managing expectations. Maybe it's just a matter of something else. I don't know. I knew full well that when the show actually started, how I am at concerts. Okay, if you've seen me at a concert like this, you might think something's wrong. Look at anyone along the rail at the shows I go to, and you'll see people flipping out, going over the top, pumping their fists, screaming the songs, aggressively headbanging, shouting at the band. And then there's me, a short guy in a hat, that's just sort of standing there and maybe bobbing my head to the tempo of the song. And that's how I've always been at shows. I have, unless I'm at like a basement show where I have an opportunity to mosh and get more physical and get more into it. Um, that's typically how I am. And I'm okay with that. I have front row. I spent forever getting that front row, and it took hours to get there. And so I don't want to expend all of my energy and be in a position where I'm exhausted by the end of it any more than I'm already going to be. I can't just express myself that way. It also just doesn't feel genuine. And so I'm back to value again. All these folks are having maybe a better time than I am for the same money. And so maybe I should look into spending less money on this the next time they come through, which either means general admission or seats. And so, yeah, um, I can only tell how much I enjoyed myself genuinely, but I can pick up what others are saying about how they're enjoying themselves implicitly. You know what I mean? And so it seems like those people are having the time of their lives. And I'm not, I don't want to downplay it. I didn't have the time of my life, right? I knew what I was coming into. I was here to listen to Metallica play songs. It's not a life defining moment. But anyway, speaking of general admission, let's bring it back to the show. 3:45 starts approaching, and a venue or concert worker, somebody in the foyer of the dome, in that like intermediate area where we were, corrals us together and talks about entry to the floor. The rules are that we walk in a single file line from the entry to the floor. If you run, you'll be sent back to the back of the line. If you have a problem with being sent back, you'll be sent out and just kicked out. And like, I wasn't in that much of a hurry. I was willing to walk and follow the rules because, everyone around me was just like scoffing and laughing at the idea that everyone would commit, that everyone would follow the rules. It's like that game where where there's a lot of players and there's money going into a pot, and any player is allowed to grab money out of that pot for themselves. But if they hold out, they all get an equal share at the end, right? Uh, there's more than enough space around that ring for everybody that was there. And as someone that showed up super early and watched the line grow hundreds longer than where I was at, I would like that patience I had to be rewarded just by getting a spot along the rail. Time came to let us in, and for the most part, folks were maintaining a walking speed and staying single file, doing exactly what they were supposed to. However, I saw one guy run and cut in line. He got chewed out by staff. I don't know exactly what happened to him, if he actually got sent back or not, but it was clear they weren't screwing around with these rules, and that's respectable. Uh, I was there at 12:45, and there were 100 people in front of me. Who knows when they got there? Okay, and those people should. They should be their patience should be acknowledged and rewarded. I'm sorry that's my opinion. Uh, the stage was a round donut shape, like a ring, with a big snake pit in the middle for super fans that spent over $1,000 on their weekend packages. The ring-shaped stage itself had a surface that was kind of like a warped record. Okay, on one axis there were raised portions. Okay, underneath of which was the path that got you into the snake pit. And on the perpendicular axis, there were lowered portions. And by my measurement, like 2 feet, 2.5 feet lower than most of the stage. Where I was at, I was right next to Snake Pit entry, kind of right by where the stage goes up. I had like a stairway right in front of me where bands would enter. I saw Mammoth and Pantera both go up that stage. I think Metallica went up that stage also, or up those stairs at the same on their first entry into the venue. So that was really cool. Okay. But the stage was also lined along its entire perimeter with stage lights and monitors and these screens that show like set list and lyrics. And, so much so that it was really difficult to see much of the actual stage floor, right? Uh, at least directly in front of me, that was the case. And it looked like that was the case pretty much everywhere. I don't want to dwell too much on the opening acts. They admittedly weren't who I was there to see, although I try to keep an open mind after the first time I saw Metallica and the Sword ruled. That being said, if you recall, the Sword ruled and Down didn't do much for me. And as far as I'm concerned, this Pantera reunion it really seems more like Down with a different lineup playing Pantera songs. Somebody could just easily say it's Pantera with a different lineup playing Pantera songs. A lot of folks will go back and forth talking about whether or not a Pantera reunion is actually what we saw, and if that could even happen without the Abbott brothers. Whatever. But again, I don't want to dwell on them. Even if I don't care for the bands, I try to at least be respectful. Give them my attention. Put my phone down unless I'm taking pictures. Try not to do that too much. Clap after the songs, etc. They are performers. They deserve some amount of respect. Mammoth played for a half hour, then a quick changeover before Pantera played. They played an hour, and then a long changeover and prep for Metallica. It was cool to see all the stage prep that was done, by stagehands, all the stuff that went in and to getting this production. I feel like I didn't get to see that the last time. Rex Brown's bass tech was literally right in front of me, and when each band got done, they rolled out all their gear right past me, including soundboards and snakes. I had just presumed that they all used the same soundboard and audio gear, and they just like every other show I've been to at like a local venue. However, not the case. Every band had their own soundboard and wiring and mics and everything. This is very informative and interesting. I was wearing earplugs for the first time at a Metallica concert, and that felt great, at least sonically. I took them off between sets to give my ears some comfort. The earplugs do tend to irritate my ear canals a little bit. Taking them out once again exposed me to the peeing contest going on around me. Folks were talking about how they saw Pantera before they were Pantera and how they've had drinks with the Abbott brothers and how Zakk Wylde is actually playing this guy over here, his guitar. Okay. Folks that maybe are just so excited they have to do something to get it out, and that something is talk at other people about stuff that does not matter and probably is not wholly true. Okay. I'd rather just keep my mouth shut. Another thing I noticed between sets is just how much folks want free stuff. With Rex Brown's tech right in front of us, all the people around me were begging him for a guitar pick or a set list or whatever they could get. When bands were finished, they would walk around on stage and fling out excess picks from the mic stand or whatever they had in their pockets. And when the picks got flung, everyone would just jut their arms out from the crowd over the rails. I'd see 6 or 7 fresh arms next to me on either side, all begging security or officers and stagehands to stop what they're doing just to pick them up a guitar pick, one that came from a jar and wasn't even used, and then given specifically to that person. Right? That's what they wanted. Let's talk about crew real quick. It takes a lot of folks to make this production happen. Okay, and a lot of folks that go unnamed and unrecognized. Metallica may hop on stage for 2 hours and play their songs, not just 4 dudes. Meanwhile, before we get there, while we're there, and after we're there, you have tons of folks running around nonstop, monitoring things, running boards, troubleshooting, filming. Just because you are enjoying yourselves and can relax does not mean that these folks have that luxury. They don't have time to cater to every one of your pressing desires, and it's not their job, right? They're not there to help you score free merch. They're not there to have a conversation with you. They're not there to joke around with you. They have a job to do. They are working. This is their Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. A guy next to me on the second night, spoilers, I got rail second night, was taken aback because one of the bigger security fish in the sea wasn't interested in entertaining the audience members' jokes about free gear. That guy's not a jerk. He's just staff. He's on one of the biggest selling artists. He's working for one of the biggest selling artists of all time in their world tour. He cares way more about making sure that those people are happy than you are happy. Sorry to tell you that, bud. Also, when these members give out one pick or a drumstick or whatever, suddenly there's a sea of crowd members that all go, "Where's mine? Where's mine?" It is always a losing situation for them to try to appease anybody. But anyway, Metallica, the band I came to see, the band whose enhanced experience I am reviewing in this video. Metallica set was fine, more or less, musically, that is. It was about everything I would have expected out of this, the theme of this tour. There wasn't a lot of pyro, which I thought was interesting, and it was all mostly saved for the end. I wasn't sure if there would be any, but there definitely was in 2008 when I saw them indoors at a hockey rink, so I knew it wasn't a matter of being indoors that kept them from doing pyro. But let's talk about what sucked about it, about the experience. The long story short is visibility and sound. When you're on the rails, you're maybe 6 feet away from the stage, as close as anyone can get. Metallica knows that they have a full, roundish venue to play to, and their approach to this was to have 4 drum kits in the stage that would raise and lower throughout the night. Their 2 hours was divided into 4 half-hour sets, and the drum set would be in one location for a full 30 minutes, go down, and they go to large and start playing in the other position. That drum set would also rotate. So even in that position, he was playing to everybody. Okay. Nice touch. For their first 30 minutes, though, they were directly in front of me, which ruled. Visibility was no real concern at all. They were probably 15 or 16 volt. There were probably 15 or 16 vocal mics across the whole stage, so James Hetfield could bounce between any of them and sing into any of them. So there was 3 or 4 in front of us that he could, sing to us, sing to the pit, sing to us, sing to the pit. And despite having a whole stage, the band would usually play nearish to the drummer at the start of one of those 4 sets, and then branch out a bit towards the end, and then regroup at the beginning of the next set right around the drum set. The problem came up when they moved from my location. I couldn't see much, if any, of the drums in any of the other 3 locations, and I couldn't see much more of the band members when they weren't right in front of me. They did come back around, the band members I could walk. Rob Trujillo on bass, Kirk Hammond on lead guitar. They don't do much singing vocals. They aren't tied to mics or a drum set. They were able to explore the stage a bit more. But they spent so much time with us already that they had to, a whole stage of people. My vision was further obstructed by the near seamless line of monitors, lights, and screens for the band members to see. That I had to peer through the cracks and gaps between those to maybe get a glance at the drum kit. Taller folks could see more for sure, but that also meant even worse visibility for people behind them, people that are shorter like me. I figured as a shorter guy, for the record, I'm not trying to co-opt being short. I know shorter men than me, all right? But I feel like I'm not the tallest dude in my family. In fact, I think I'm the shortest guy in my family. I'm shorter. I recognize that. I could have been taller. But anyway, I figured as a shorter guy, my presence on the rail would not bother as much. I wouldn't bother anybody by being on the rail. Most everybody behind me I figured would be taller, close to taller. Turns out the person it bothered most was me. And so my only other option was to look up at these screens they had. They had 8 towers, right? On the floor that were cylindrical. Okay. Well, the towers were just steel beams. When they got to the top, the screens were cylindrical. They're probably 16 feet in diameter, maybe about 16 feet tall. And they were split into 3 or 4 slices. I couldn't get a good read on how many slices they were split into, but they would show the same video on several times on the same screen. And so that way, I guess it could be seen from all angles. That's the idea. This contrasts Busch Stadium, where they had the wall of screens that totally supplemented what I was missing when the band wasn't directly in front of me. The problem with these video tower screens is that they were splits where the splits, right, where they would, segment the screen. And because I was up on the rails, those splits housed all the lights that pointed down at the stadium, right? And so on top of that, I would see in a frame, I'm going to do like a video effect to show what I'm talking about. What I could see of this, on the left half, I saw the right half of the video. On the right half, I saw the left half of the video. And then in the middle, I saw these sometimes blinding lights pointing somehow directly in my eyes. And on top of that, they were putting video overlays on, video effects and filters over the video. So it wasn't even a pure video feed. It wasn't a good visual supplement for what I was missing. Um, yeah, it wasn't ideal. And so for over half the concert, I couldn't even really see the band. I could only hear them. And so let's talk about audio. From the rafters hung several sets of, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 speakers. They look like 12-inch monitors, flat 12-inch monitors. And they kind of do that, curved down thing that you'll see at stadium shows. Nothing I hadn't seen before. I feel like what speakers I saw were meant to broadcast best to the middle of the crowd, right? The floor goes this way and then the bowl starts going up. The closer you are to that middle, the better sound you're going to get. The more you are on the fringes, the worse sound you're going to get. But like what made me notice the sound was bad. I think there was a part in The Day That Never Comes where both guitar players would play their own parts separately and come together for a harmony for a little bit and go back to their parts separately. I couldn't hear much of the guitars when they were playing separately, but when they came together, it was like 3 times louder. All right. And when they went back to their individual parts, it went back quiet again. And I think I know what happened. When they were doing sound check, they were before Metallica, they would go around. They have wah pedals all over the place, so that Kirk Hammett and Rob Trujillo, both of which use wah, can use whichever wah pedal is closest to them instead of being tied to a specific pedal board. You could hear that. You could audibly hear them testing those with when the techs were up there testing, and when they were testing the bass, for example, the sound was clearly coming from right in front of me. All right, but not anywhere up in the speakers. And what I think happened is that, opening acts had their amps on the stage. I think Metallica didn't have any amps on the stage. All their stuff was beneath the stage. And I think based on where I think I had a certain set of amps in front of me. And so when stuff got really loud, I think that just happened to be when the techs were switching signals over to that signal chain. If you're a guitar player, you know all about signal chains and, dirty channels, lead channels, clean channels, what have you. I'm sure that like they have, not only do they have different amps for each signal chain they want, but when you have things like the harmonies where you have to have the level set differently, they probably have a different amp for that. It's Metallica. They can afford it for sure. And so anytime it felt like I was getting occasional bursts from whichever amps, whatever signal paths, I feel like those amps just happened to be closer or pointed at me. I think that was the problem. Where I was not getting much of the board audio. I was just getting actual amp audio. And maybe I wouldn't have actually noticed this if I didn't have earplugs in, because this is the first time I heard Metallica most clearly. But it was either I was going to hear, my hearing's too valuable to lose at these concerts. One last issue I had with sound that I want to talk about real quick was when the drums were directly in front of me, I could hear the hit of the drum before I heard it someplace else. It was like a slapback echo. And I don't know if there was some signal processing going on between the hit of the drum and it coming out the speaker that was above me, or if what I was actually hearing was hit of the drum, sound comes out of the speaker, bounces off of something in the stadium, and comes back to me as the echo, which further goes to show I'm not really hearing much of the sound as it's coming out of the speaker, and that can be problematic. Towards the end of Metallica's sets, they did the same thing they did in 2008 and released these massive beach balls from up above. This time they came from within those cylinder tower screens. The crowd bounces these around, but because of where those towers were in the floor, and also with the size of the venue, there were so many, and they were all concentrated on the floor. Like almost none got to the seats, which sucks for folks in the seats. I feel like they should be able to enjoy that experience as well. I feel like when I saw Metallica in 2008, more beach balls got up to the seats. They're probably 4 feet or bigger in diameter, and despite being hollow and filled with air, they were decently hefty. I tried bouncing one away from my much taller, unsuspecting neighbor on the left, and it jammed my wrist backwards pretty hard. The nature of the crowd somehow pushed them forward and up and onto the stage, further obstructing my visibility. I already couldn't see things, and now I got these massive beach balls in the way. Due to safety, they were not allowed to stay in the worker pit between the general admission and the stage, and workers were cutting some of them down with their knives. Folks wanted to keep them, but they had to be deflated, and the fast way to do that was with a knife, which also renders the beach balls not necessarily worthless, but not as good as one that was deflated naturally. The key was to pull the inflation valve and try to keep an eye on it while it's slowly deflated, and wait till you can get both arms on it and just slowly squeeze all the air out of it. These lasted for maybe a song or so. Folks around me were clamoring to get a deflated beach ball, which brings me to the brings me to the end of the set. The band walked around and just started hurling handfuls of picks to the crowd. Kirk Hammett came around and chucked a bunch near me, and I caught one out of the air. Everyone around me was pestering security to get them picks that fell on the ground, and that's when I saw some of these white picks. Some of these white picks. The James Hetfield Metallica White Fang guitar pick. I have some. My brother bought me some for Christmas one year. And they're fine picks, but did you hear what I just said? My brother bought me these, and these are what I'm seeing on the ground. It's not what I caught. There was a variety of picks, but these are what I was seeing on the ground that didn't get caught, okay? So the White Fang picks that were on the floor weren't used by James Hetfield, okay? They were just tossed out by hand, and folks were losing their minds trying to get them. Granted, the pick I caught was exclusive to the tour, and I think it was a bass pick. Speaking of bass picks, a tech or a worker later went on, or earlier, after Pantera's set, was just handing out picks, and I just happened to be there. He just put one in my hand, thanked him, and moved on, and put it away, and I kept going on with my show. It wasn't like it wasn't a world-changing experience to get a Rex Brown guitar pick. And so I just put it in my tumbler, which had my free drink ticket guitar pick, and carried on. And so is there just this mystique that surrounds things that celebrities have touched? I have a Real Big Fish guitar pick that I caught after the guitar player had finished playing with it. And I think my Toadies guitar pick is the same way. They're cool. They're cool. They're cool to have. But a mass-produced guitar pick just isn't worth clamoring for to me. I felt like people were just losing their minds over these tiny little trinkets. I was talking to my dad about this, and he mentioned that folks have this fascination with celebrities. And maybe that explains it all. The hype, the excitement, the picks, the beach balls. People put these four guys on these monolithic pedestals. To just be in their presence is a blessing in and of itself. And I like the band, and I think it might be cool to have a conversation with them, but I'm not going to get weak knees over it. Most importantly, they wrote music that altered the course of my life, and that's the most important thing. However, I know behind that music is just four dudes, and I've known a lot of bands personally that have altered, my perception of music. And it's just that these guys managed to do it in a way that was incredibly successful. I've met a lot of musicians that have great music that, made me reevaluate what music means and what it can do for somebody in the same way that Metallica did. Whether they're the same quality of musician, whether they're the same quality of production, or the same quality of stage show is debatable for sure. It just doesn't, I hate this idea of rock royalty or metal gods. Okay. I think that's my frustration with it. I'm sure they're pleasant guys to talk to. But yeah, and then there's another argument of they don't live the same life that I do. They're, I'm not casting shade on the fact that they're successful, but there's an element of I can't relate to them anymore because of that. That's just the way it is. And so while they are just four dudes, they are four incredibly wealthy dudes. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say about that. Okay. We could go on and on about the wealth of Metallica. The next day, Saturday, was my off day. I got the vibe that the next show was just going to be a chore. And that sucks. I feel I have to go to get my money's worth out of it. I felt that way about the last Comic-Con I went to, also at that building. I bought a weekend pass, and I went on Friday and it sucked. I went on Saturday, it sucked. I just didn't even go on Sunday because I was just this sucks. I was really bummed out, and I just it just didn't feel good. It wouldn't have felt good to go, and it didn't feel good to not go. I was real disappointed. Not that I was disappointed with this weekend, but let's carry on. I really don't care for Five Finger Death Punch, and I tried to keep an open mind about Ice Nine Kills. I didn't know what they were about, but it felt like altogether it was going to be an experience where I questioned my intentions and my expectations. I decided that to improve my visibility, I was at least going to go for where the stage dips down. I probably could see way more if I get there. I decided I was going to use the Metrolink and park for free at my nearest station and just walk from that stop near the convention center to the Dome. I decided I was going to go try to be earlier. I was going to bring a book. I was going to spend time sitting down. I was going to bring a battery bank for my phone and use that, my S8, to take pictures instead of the Lumia 1020 I brought on Friday, which was garbage. It has a 41 megapixel sensor, but you can't access it unless you have the Pro Camera app, but you can't download the Pro Camera app anymore because it's a Microsoft phone or a Windows phone. So you have to side load it. It's a nightmare. I was just going to try to have a better and more comfortable time on Sunday. And that's basically what I did. I arrived at 12:30, not nearly as earlier as I'd hoped. And when I got to the stadium, the line was already at least twice as long. I'm sure what happened was all the folks that realized they were in the wrong line on Friday and had to go get pushed back got there earlier and got in the right line. I'm sure all the folks that ended up showing up late to the line and thought, I'm going to get there earlier, they showed up earlier. I felt confident that despite this, being 200 or 300 people deep in the line, I'd still get rail, especially after the split that was going to happen when we walked inside. I sat down and read The Hobbit while I waited. Saw a lot of folks that I saw the day prior up and down the line. Folks weren't sure what the second day merch would be. If we would get a second cup, a black Yeti cup to match our yellow Yeti cup. Some folks said they got posters at other stops on the tour. See, that's the thing too. Other stops on the tour. Folks will just follow bands around. And I think that's what the I Disappear package was, where you pay X amount, who knows, thousands of dollars, and you get to go to any of the shows on the tour for free. Or not for free, you paid for it. You just show up, ask for a ticket, and you get into the show. These were the folks I saw that had like 72 Seasons themed battle jackets and were all buddy-buddy with everyone in the line and knew everybody on first name basis because they've been seeing them along the tour. Again, I can't imagine being that enthused about this band to dedicate that kind of time and money and travel to seeing them so many times on one tour. I feel like I'd just get burnt out. But then again, it had me questioning my own enthusiasm. Eventually, the check-in crew came by, and the only thing we got was another drink ticket guitar pick. It seemed that there was one merch item per ticket package, not per show. Just like Friday, I opted to keep the drink ticket guitar pick instead of get a drink and went back to reading. When they let us into the building, I did the same thing and went straight for the line. I pulled open my book to start reading, but was immediately stopped by a guy, probably around my age, in front of me in line when he saw my Subaru jacket. I was in there for probably about an hour before we got went onto the field, and this was the first real conversation I'd had with anybody all weekend at these events. And we just talked for a while about Subarus and racing and only briefly discussed our experiences from Friday. It was so refreshing to, one, have someone to talk to, but two, not have to talk to them ad nauseum about the band we are both about to see. We both were aiming for the lower part of the stage. We split up on our way into the building. Hope he had a good show. It was nice talking to him. When we got went onto the floor, it was clear that a lot of people had the same idea for going for the lower areas. I didn't notice if they did on Friday, but they definitely did on Sunday. The entry where we got let in was near one of the two dips in the stage. It was like the first feature you could get to. And everyone at the front of the line had pretty well crowded that one. So I had to get to the back of the stage from where I was. When I got there, that one was pretty well crowded too. I got as close as I could to that crowd from where I was, and I was in a decent spot, but I wasn't as low as I could have been. I felt confident I was better off. To my left was this couple I'd seen on Friday in line. I've also seen them in line a couple times. They're easy spot because the guy had this short-sleeved, very colorful blazer, I think, that I heard if I eavesdropped correctly, was what he wore to his wedding. Not sure. His wife was next to me, and then he was next to her. Across from them was our first designated security guy. The crew kept changing throughout the night, so he wouldn't end up sticking around. The big dude to my left and the bigger security dude were chatting it up. Both evidently worked in security gigs. Both had the build for it. It was through listening. It was through listening in on their conversation while I resumed my reading that I heard that the drum kit was actually one kit that would lower down beneath the stage and go around on a track system to the other spots and go back up. But the problem with that is that there's no way a drum kit would fit fully loaded with cymbals and mics underneath the dips in the stage. This was yet again someone trying to seem more interesting than they are by trying to have some tidbit of information about the band that no one else had heard before. That guy would eventually leave and go on lunch, probably before the bands even started, and we get a different crew in front of us, less chatty with my neighbors. Again, I don't want to dwell on the opening acts. I'll just say that I learned through trial that they are very much not for me. Nevertheless, the folks to my right seem to be super fans of both of them, knowing lyrics and songs and trying to be recognized by the band and calling out to the band by their first names. My thing is, if I'm out somewhere and someone points at me with this face of, oh, hey, remember me? I'm probably too awkward to do anything other than, yeah, hey, it's you. Even though I have no clue who that person is. This happens to me all the time at rally. And I feel bad about it for sure. But I want to at least be polite and try to meet on common ground in conversation and be somebody approachable in those circumstances. I'll admit, I don't remember people very well. And that's my problem. That's not their problem. Okay. When you're playing to a crowd of 70,000 people and you have a pit between you and the stage and you're also playing your music, it's even easier to make that return acknowledgement, even if you have zero idea who that person is. Just like pointing or just looking, that person feels like they've been seen and it makes their night. But but I, do you think they actually know who you are? And I can't prove, I'm not saying that they don't, but I can't prove the opposite. Um, I will say this much though. Five Finger Death Punch guy, singer of Five Finger. I will say this much though: the singer of Five Finger Death Punch, just kept biting the top off of water bottles that got handed to him, like biting the top off, take a swig, and just chuck the rest of it into the crowd or whatever for somebody to catch and get wet. It's real frustrating to watch, especially as someone that was inadvisably abstaining from food and drink to avoid a soul-crushing trip to the bathroom from which I would not return to my original seat. I was parched. However, during an instrumental part of their last song, I think, the singer did go around with the top of a pizza box someone probably brought in and had band members autograph it as best they could while still playing. And that was probably the coolest thing that guy did all night. Interpret that however you will. Anyway, the time gap between Five Flavor Fruit Punch and Metallica seemed like forever this time, but eventually they did come on. By this point, it was clear that I had a better spot along the rail for seeing the band. The set went on as expected. They did at one point say, this next song is off, whatever that album is called. And I was really hoping it'd be their one Saint Anger song. But alas, it was a song off Hardwired. The reason I'm so hung up on Saint Anger songs is because they have been playing them. They've retooled some of them, put some solos in and made them more palatable, turned the snare actually on the snare drum. And I want to hear what one of those is like live. I think it could be cool. During their last set is when things got interesting. They ended the night with One and then Enter Sandman. The Beach Balls actually came down before One during Whiskey in the Jar. And the remnants were still hanging around at the beginning of One. Deflated balls, trying to get, air squeezed out of them by fans that want to take those home. And I knew that they had to be put away because pyrotechnics were coming on. And so you could not have those things on stage while pyro happens. They had flames and fireworks. You could not have a beach ball on stage. And so the big guy to my left gets his hand on a dying beach ball, as does whoever is to his left. I remember seeing out the side of my eye a struggle for it, and then I heard him say aloud, well, I'm just not letting go. The struggle would escalate, and I think the dude was just screaming at another guy. I think Big Dude and someone's girlfriend had their hands on the deflated beach ball, and the girlfriend's boyfriend was arguing with Big Dude about it. Security got involved, and eventually the dude backed down and relented. He was close to getting kicked out, I feel like. I feel like the big dude was getting handed pick after pick from security and crew members. He had front row seats, and is nearly a foot taller than I am. And I think the girlfriend that got the ball was even shorter than me. And it's like, dude, when will you have gotten enough from this concert, right? He managed to convince a security guard to hand him a full bottle of water that was on the ground. Look to see what water costs at one of these concerts, and realize you're gonna have to give up your spot on the rail to get it. And this guy got it handed to him for free. Everyone just has to have more and more and more. Got a pick? You get one pick, get another. Do whatever it takes to convince these event workers to get you that pick up off the ground. Fight tooth and nail for a deflated, probably ruined beach ball. It's like what Black Friday used to be like. You're already front row at a Metallica concert, and up until this point, you seem to have been having a great time. Why is that not already enough? And so dude frustrated me because of that behavior. Metallica finished up their set and once again came around handing out picks and drumsticks, and I caught another one tossed out by Kirk Hammett. This time it was a black guitar pick, which was pretty cool. If I didn't get one, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I already had one from the last night, and even then, these aren't the guitar picks they played with, I managed to complete my primary objective of being on the rail 2 nights in a row. That's all I wanted out of it. I feel like I managed my expectations well. I headed out of the stadium and heard several folks talking about Beach Ball Man and how loud he was during the quiet parts of one. Headed to the Metrolink, hopped on, and headed home. And so, yeah, that was my Metallica experience this weekend. What am I taking away from this? I think that I really need to reevaluate my approach moving forward. It's not that I won't see Metallica when they come through next time. I probably will. But I need to consider what their stage layout would be like. I need to consider whether the hours of exhaustion and no food, no drink, just to secure a position from which I can barely see is worth paying extra money for. Um, I've seen some photos from the seats, and at first glance, they aren't too impressive. But also keep in mind that human vision works differently than photos do. Just because it looks far away doesn't mean it is. And sitting in those nosebleed seats at a hockey game or a football game is all I need to confirm that it looks far away, but the way the mind and the eyes work together, it doesn't feel all that far. You can see everything without even moving your head. Your seat will always be there for you when you get back, and you can go and get a water, a hot dog, go to the bathroom, etc. You don't have to show up early. You could stay half the time. I spent 11 hours from the time I got there to the time I left, both days. I could show up at 5:30, grab a hot dog on my way in, and still have time to see all the opening acts. I could skip the opening acts, you know? So how much is your time worth? Ask yourself that question. I'm going to be asking myself that question next time they come around. Looking into various enhanced experiences, it looks like the Seek and Destroy package, which is about $100 more, would have gotten me a great low bowl seated ticket, but that's even more money. I don't think lower bowl was restricted to the enhanced package though, and could have been bought separately. For the record, the enhanced packages only came as 2-day tickets in a pre-sale fashion, but eventually they did open up sales for the individual nights. There just wasn't any early entry or free merch that came with those. I guarantee that one could get tickets in the bowl somewhere seated for less than I paid. It just comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. I don't know. This whole experience had me questioning everything. Do I even actually like music? Opening acts that were playing football-sized stadiums, getting applause, and folks singing along, I just don't know these songs or care about their style of music. And the band I am here to see does not bring out of me what it does for everybody else. Maybe I am just different, right? And it's weird to, I've always been a variety of different. Maybe I'm just another way of different here. But does that mean I stopped going? I said earlier that I spent about $66 a year to see Metallica. Let's put it this way. If Metallica came through every single year and tickets were $66, would I still go? I think the answer is absolutely yes, especially when one considers that yearly cost I calculated is because I'm seeing them front row every time. But would I see them every year if given the opportunity? Metallica has 11 studio albums, a cover album, that Lou Reed abortion we won't talk about, a symphonic record. There's a huge catalog to see them play stuff from, but time and time again, I feel like their 40-year history has put them in a position where they have to play a certain set of staples, and that makes up for nearly half their set, if not more. And so it's hard to say I would see Metallica on a yearly basis if an hour plus of that was the same every single time. And honestly, a lot of their staples I don't really care for. I want to hear Escape. I want to hear Until It Sleeps. I want to hear Frantic or Saint Anger or Invisible Kid. I want to hear My Apocalypse and Lords of Summer. I'm done seeing them play Nothing Else Matters and Enter Sandman and Seek and Destroy at this point. And they're just gonna put out another album before they tour again, and then space for that is gonna the space that album is gonna have to take up in that tour could be filled by deep cuts, and that the space for deep cuts shrinks even further. The No Repeat weekend was a good theme, and it did facilitate me hearing more of their library that I'd never heard before. And I can't help but think this will be the new format for them. And I just got to be aware of what I'm signing up for the next time they come around. That's about it. That's about all I have for this video. If you saw them on this tour, if you saw them in St. Louis, say something. Let me know what you thought about it, where you were in the seats, how your experience was with sound and visibility. What I have I'm not mad. I'm not frustrated. I'm not even really disappointed. It was a humbling experience to know that I had to think more thoroughly when buying these tickets. I'm not obligated to buy tickets just because Metallica's coming through. I'm allowed to sit there and think about the decision. And that's, again, another me problem. I realized a lot of me problems this weekend. I need to work on that. And that's fine. That's part of growing up and part of, self-reflection and self-improvement. Finding your problems, reflecting on them, and making decisions to improve upon those problems. And so, yeah, in ways, this weekend was educational in a way I didn't expect it would be. Um, and so, yeah, I'll see Metallica again, and I'll have another video review when that finally happens. And I hope that maybe if you haven't seen Metallica yet and you haven't bought tickets yet, maybe your experiences were informed by my experiences. And I hope this helps. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for watching and sitting through this super long review of a concert that you might have seen, you might not have seen, for a band that you might care about or you might not care about. I hope that it helped somebody and was entertaining. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.